Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is episode 19 of PodTC. We are a little late on the July episode, but we are going to get it out soon. No worries, I think. But today I am joined by a really special guest, someone I've really known almost since I got started in the transfer world back in 2017 already. I am here with the Queen, Becky Barnes, from Tri-C. How are you doing today, Becky?
I'm doing great there, Jonathan.
I'm really glad you're here. Becky is the Director of Articulation, Transfer, and Prior Learning at Tri-C, and she's been in that role for quite a while now. But she is also the winner of the Jonathan Tafel Award this year, which is really the highest honor that OTC bestows on someone who's really been incredible in the year for, we say at least 10 years. I know that you've, been doing great work even longer than that, but I would like to, we said this at the conference back in June, but here's your internet congratulations for the award as well. Very well deserved.
Thank you. I appreciate it's very appreciated and I'm honored to receive it. And I had gotten the other award in 2017, the Vander.
Yeah, the Tom Vander. Yep. Yeah. So that one is a big one as well. But this was, the epitome, right?
Yes.
So you have the second plaque now. Do you still have the old one and where did you put the new one? Is it in your office at work? Do you have them at home?
I have both of them in my office, one right on top of the other on my wall. So I'm
Nice.
very, honored to have those so people can see them.
Yeah.
And myself remind me to continue to do good work.
Yep. And when your boss walks in, just remind them, like, hey, look up on the wall. I'm an award winner. Just remember
Yes.
that the next time. Yeah, I'm just joking. But like I said, I'm super excited that you're here. Like I said, I've known you for a while. I think that a lot of people around the state know you, but for the ones that don't, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? We've kind of gone over your name and title and stuff already, but anything else that you'd want to share for the membership?
Sure. So yeah, I've been at Tri-C since 2015. I started in January. I had worked for about a year and a half prior to that with Terrace State, which just personally wasn't a good fit in the work that I was doing there. I was director of academic advising and did some enrollment management things. And before that, I spent 30 years at Ashland University. And that's where I started my transfer work. It was so awesome to work with students because it's kind of when you work with transfer students, it's anybody who's worked with both freshmen and transfers know that transfers are each and every one a little more unique because they bring more to the table that you need to figure out. And I kind of like to figure things out and look how things fit together and always would want to start working with students and they're ready to transfer. And I'm like, oh, but if you stay where you are and take more courses, there is value. I felt very certain at a 2-year school for that they could do more work, save some money, and
Hmm.
be able to finish quicker. So I've been around. I started in 1982, so I know I'm older than most people that are doing this work today. But it's been great. I enjoy it. I would like to do it for quite a bit longer, as long as I feel that I'm able to do the work and do it well. I have a daughter. She's the love of my life. My husband has passed a few years ago. But my daughter, I was just out visiting her. She has a blog called Bliss and Bellini, as an influencer, and just received an award for being a top influencer in Connecticut. So
Wow.
for her area. So it was very fun for her to receive that award. So
Yeah.
other than that, some of the stuff that I do that's kind of outside of what people may know about me. I'm the president of a pre-professional ballet company, Ashland Regional Ballet, and we have a school which is called Opus 2 Dance Studio. So that keeps me pretty busy with the various things we do throughout the year, the performances, and just running a school. Have a great staff there. And I have background. I showed horses for years and years. So those are kind of the things that make me tick and keep me busy
Yeah.
outside the.
Very, very interesting background, of course. Glad to know that award winning runs in the family, it sounds. So And then, real quick, how long have you been in your current role at Tri-C?
Yeah, January in 2015, I came in and worked with, at that point, it was articulation, transfer, and articulated credit, which, we all know that, you know, words matter and, things change, same thing, but then it was changed to prior learning.
Yeah,
So,
it's a
and
good name for an
yes,
office. Yeah.
and this is the first time I've worked in a non-student facing role because my job is working through the curriculum and academic side. So I was a little concerned about not working directly with students, but all the work that we do, and I was able to you know, shift my thinking into saying this is all for the benefit of students and the benefit the people who need to use these resources so they can easily understand them. So
Yeah.
uh, so it's worked out real well.
Yeah.
But I did have honestly a little bit of a concern but it is not it's worked out beautifully. So
Yeah. I think you had a lot of years working face to face with students as well. So it's not like you didn't do your time.
exactly.
So we obviously, I was talking about how you were at the OTC conference. How did you enjoy the conference this year?
I thought the conference was really good. There's a number of things that I've always appreciated about OTC, even before they went together, where they had the southern and the northern kind of areas, and now the one group, which I think that was a great thing to do. Um, I was involved in planning for years. I was on the
Mhm.
executive board, so I've been involved with it for a while. But um, it not only the sessions, because once again, people often say, "Oh, you're going to a conference. What do you think you're going to learn?" And I'm like, I'm a lifelong learner. There's always something new or a little bit of something someone's going to say, and I will go, oh, I can't use it exactly like that, but I can use it like this.
Mhm.
So I felt I got a lot of that out of the sessions that I went to. Just hearing the questions that other people have and the concerns other people have, because I'm like, I hadn't thought about that, or that's always helpful. But the thing that I probably enjoy the most are the people, is getting a chance to catch up, not only personally but professionally, because the work that I do, I'm usually working with provosts, sometimes presidents, vice presidents of enrollment management, those types of folks that don't typically go to that conference. I'm working and talking with the people who are there that are actually implementing the things, the agreements we're working on, and those kinds of things. So it's great to be able to get their reactions, see if they have concerns of things that we can change where maybe they don't have as much influence as they'd like on their campus. Maybe I can assist with what really needs to be done to benefit the students more. So
Yeah.
it's not only the sessions, it's just reconnecting with people, and not, like I said, not just personally, but professionally to see how we might make change.
Yeah. The correct answer was the social, but yeah.
I did enjoy the social, I will tell you. I do like the game. So I was wandering around. I finally told a few people after we were talking, I said, I'm just going to walk around. So I'm out playing the, various games. I enjoy that. Yeah, that was fun. I did enjoy the social.
Yeah, still big props to Melissa for letting me spend some more money on that than we had in years prior. But it was a
Yes,
fun time, I think.
yes, I would agree.
Okay, let's talk about some other stuff then. So, obviously, I think you alluded to it a little bit, like your time at Ashland and Tara Tracy, all of that. But really, what was the moment where you really started working with transfer students? I don't think you were a transfer student when you were a student, right?
No, no,
Right. So
I
what
would.
kind of led you to that place?
Right. So I started out working. I was kind of the I was graduating from Ashland. I saw our president over summer at a summer theater thing, and he said, "You ought to come back and give back and work for the school." And I was like, hadn't really thought about it. And the next thing I know, what am I doing? I'm coming back to work in admissions. But so at that first point, I was just obviously doing freshman admission kind of work. And for those people who did not know what used to go on, those positions were not 12-month positions. They were usually 9 or 10 month. Because why? What could people do for 12 months, right? Well, I was the first person after getting a 10-month contract to get a full year contract, and then everybody else did too, because I could give you all kinds of reasons why we needed to have people 12 months. But so I started working with freshmen. I did work with some transfer students occasionally after the first couple of years because Ashland did a really good job and we really catered. We really tried to accept credit when it really made sense. We did a lot with giving scholarship money early on, where a lot of schools were like, no, we don't give these transfer students any money. If you don't come as a freshman, you don't get the money. I think we still deal with that. But I just started helping out because we had so many students that were coming in and not enough time. And like I said, I really liked looking at all these transcripts because I would do some help, kind of that unofficial between the registrar's office and the admission office, and transcripts. So that's how I got the interest. And then so when the position came available, I was like, this is something I have an interest in. And so I started working with transfers early on at Ashland. And I love the work. I love to visit the 2-year schools, go around the state and, work on articulation agreements, way back when, and really try to do a good job and get more students to transfer and make it easy for them. Some 4-year schools at that time was not making it easy for students. I kept thinking about, how can we make it easier? How can this be easily understood? I started doing unofficial evaluations for students coming in, which most schools did not have the ability. But since I worked very closely with the registrar, he knew I understood curriculum well. I wouldn't make the decisions. I would contact faculty. But sometimes, I'm sorry, in a lot of cases, American history is American history, right? So not a difficult thing to decide. I also, once the state started coming out with the OT, OTMs at that point, now OT 36 and tags and things, I was able to get the administration and faculty understands that if the state's going to accept them, we should probably be accepting them as well. Right. So once again, it made it a lot easier for students. So once I started working with transfers, I was hooked. I really enjoyed it, and tried to really help them out. Does it work? Does it make sense to come now? Should they stay? Or maybe they shouldn't continue there because some of the areas, like in a social work area where they do those practicums, they don't transfer in. What makes sense for them? Me not making the decision, but giving them options.
Right. Yeah. I think that's probably all of our favorite points about working with transfer students. I always just say that they're every student is kind of like a puzzle. Some are easier, some are harder, but they're all like, you've got to help put the pieces together for them. They're not, like transfer students aren't necessarily, some people might call them complicated and stuff. And I would say that that's more adult student and their needs more than the fact that they're transferring credits, but the two get lumped together quite a bit, just, because they two identities that kind of overlap a lot of the time. And at a community college, I'm sure, that does happen probably more than at a 4-year college. But you're right. It's nice to finally put the pieces together for someone, especially if you've been working with them for a long time. So I think that's probably why a lot of us stick around in the realm. But we're glad that you're still here as well. Okay. I feel like we touch on a lot of these things, but then we get into the more nitty gritty. But obviously, just a reminder, the office that you are the director of is the Articulation, Transfer, and Prior Learning Office. So obviously, you're talking about how the name kind of fits the shoe, but like, what are all the areas that you guys touch on? I know that you guys work with like some, obviously like tag approvals, all of that stuff, but can you kind of lay that out for the membership?
Sure. So articulation is fairly easy to explain. So the first part of that is working with partnerships. So we have a lot of bilaterals, obviously both public and private schools, in state, out of state, and trying to be, very specific on the schools we want to partner with. I mean, some of them, if your president says, oh, this person reached out to me, please follow up, you're going to do an agreement with them. But, we have some very specialized ones, like with the Berkeley School of Music, which is a big one. We have students go to But then, we have our Kent states and our Cleveland states, and those schools are close, Akron, that are close to us in the state system. So we have a lot of bilateral partners. Then with the OGTPs, we have a lot of partners because of the state initiative for transfer, which includes the OGTP. So we have all of ours, but one that we have majors for that we have approved. The other one, we don't quite have the courses, so we need to work those out a little bit more with our faculty. But so the articulation work is just working with our partner schools. Our transfer centers are the people on our at Tri-C who obviously are the student facing people. So we have the non-facing and the student facing. So we've been working together on maybe doing a little bit more evaluation of our partners. So we've been looking at that and trying to use some of the thing from the Aspen Institute and all the various, books and best practices and those types of things to improve those partnerships. Because the one thing I'm a huge advocate for is that we can put agreements together all day long, right? We can put pathways together, but we don't want them to be the best kept secret. We need to make sure that people are aware of those, that they don't just include a pathway and saying they're going to accept credit, whatever. We want to make sure that there's hopefully a lot of additional perks for students that are part of this agreement. If they don't have them for all students, fine, but I'm going to advocate that there's some kind of transfer scholarship. Some schools that don't have transfer scholarships, I was able to work with the team and come up with a scholarship specifically for Tri-C students. So that work is very important, but you have to think farther than the articulation agreement signings. It's what's in there and what kind of additional things it's going to provide for students that's going to make it a good fit. The one thing I did when I came in, that all of these agreements the pathways look completely different for each school. And we're a pretty big operation with 4 different campuses and counselors at all these campuses, that they would pull up one, pathway, and that it would take them the whole time they were meeting with the student to figure out the pathway, and they couldn't compare it to each school. So the first thing I said is, okay, we're doing our pathway. If you want to provide other things, fine, but we have to show the 4 semesters at Tri-C and the 4 semesters. And that way our counselors can pull those up and they can easily see and compare schools if a student is looking at various schools. So that was one of the things I implemented early on, because some 4 schools are like, oh, but that doesn't work for us. I'm like, but we need to make sure our students understand about this. And some of those schools who didn't do it, our counselors were telling me, I don't even look at those. I don't understand them. So they were quick. They were like, okay, I get it. We'll move to that. Because I'm like, here's the reason why. I don't want to dictate to you, but if you want our counselors to be able to explain this easily to students, then we need to do it this way. So that's the articulation kind of work. Transfer, it's all the work pretty much with the ODHE statewide transfer initiatives. Obviously, we still work with private schools because there's a lot of private schools that if they're not a statewide initiative, because more of the private schools are working into, we'll accept those now. It hasn't really been that way, but they're looking more. And that's how I was advocating, especially with the OGTPs. It's like, okay, we already have an OGTP. Can we follow this with this private school, right? So you will accept this as well. And that's been working pretty well. But with the course submission, so you mentioned that before, when the state decided to redo the OTM courses, the general education courses, they're now called OT36, and they have new learning guidelines and learning objectives. Tri-C has more gen ed courses than any other school in the state. So that was a lot of fun. We had, I think, 214 courses that we had to look at that were general education courses. So that took that was a big load, a big lift for us. So we went through and looked at all the courses to see if they met the new guidelines. If they didn't, then they had to go back to the faculty to redo that information. They had to then change the learning outcomes for our own Tri-C. Big work went on there. We're just now coming out of that first wave and working through. And we've had a lot of success with that. I have a great team. I have Becky Denon working with our articulations, and she is just really fantastic. I have a newer member of the team, which is Ruth Pharmakidis, and she understands course submissions and she works very well with faculty. So it's been a dream to get this hard work done with a team that understands that this is important. We have to work so closely with the deans and what we call counterpart chairs, which are basically the chairs of the various areas to get these courses done. Tri-C has gone through with a new president over the last several years. We're really enjoying Dr. Baston, but with new presidents come new ideas, and
Sure.
we just changed this big school model. So I'm very excited about it, but it changed a lot of things, a lot of people that are doing the work, and some of it's the same, but I think it's going to be fantastic for us. So the transfer is just making sure that courses are going to transfer, whether we're working with a high school program, if we're working with the statewide initiatives, or just private schools or business, to see if courses will align and transfer correctly. So we look at courses that are transferring into Tri-C, and also courses that are then transferring out from Tri-C. So that's kind of the articulation. Then credit for prior learning has, it's really blossomed a lot, right? There's a huge push from the state, and as a state institution, you need to do it. Not that it wasn't important before, but now it's very important. It's very much a part of what we need to be looking at. So I spent probably 2 years working with our IT people to come up with a non-paper, because when I first took it over, it was all pieces of paper that went from office to office to office, and needless to say, that's not ideal. So we can all do it, or it can be done now, and it's a system that goes from each person as it needs to go to a student applies. It goes to the dean, associate dean, then it goes to faculty. And so it's working out really well, and it's no more lost pieces of paper. We've been working with a lot of departments to make sure we have more challenge exams, and I want to make sure, and it has to be meeting all the learning outcomes. It has to be the same for every student who takes it, and no matter their campus, which was a bit of a change for us, because depending on what campus you're on previously, it was based on that particular campus. But now it's working out, so we're asking more departments, if it makes sense, that they have a challenge exam for a student. We do a lot of bypass credit where they're putting more portfolio kind of things together to prove that they have that. A lot is being done with if you have a certification or a license of some kind, you may be able to earn credit. The state is now doing that as well, but we were trying to look at that to make sure the ITAG, before they kind of came around, and I've worked with them on, here are some of the ones you should probably look at that we're getting a lot for. So yeah, and the latest thing, we had a Higher Learning Commission initiative where we were looking at our non-credit to see if it aligned with credit courses. So students that, if they've going through that non-credit program and they decide they want to finish a certificate or a degree, that would be applicable to using those non-credit courses if they align. Once again, it all goes back to the learning outcomes, where we don't want to give credit where it's not due, but we are going to make sure that they're being covered and covering the same things. So that's kind of the three. I mean, there's a lot to do with all of it. It's interesting and fun, and it's something new excuse me, something new every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's quite a big plate of stuff. And there's a lot of exciting things going on. I think in transfer land, we talk a lot about articulation and transfer, obviously, but that prior learning, those credits are something that I think that we could probably all do better with. And I mean, we come from a very workforce heavy state here in Ohio, especially up here in Northeast Ohio, for the peeps listening, that it is very, for those students, and that's part of getting people back into college. And the affordability of a degree and things, and just like, especially the certification, like if we're thinking, I don't know, like a networker, like if you have a Cisco certificate, that's the same thing we teach students in those, at least those first few classes, that if you can bypass some of that, it's almost like a foreign language exam at that point, right? If you're fluent in Spanish,
Yes.
why would we stick you in the first Spanish class, right? We would probably want to put you on to where your current knowledge base puts you as a student. So the more that we can do that kind of work, I think the better that'll be a good fit for students, especially Cuyahoga County.
Yes, absolutely. And thrilled to really see that we're getting some students, because a lot of our prior learning credit is coming from some of the trades areas where they already
Hmm.
have it, construction management kinds of things. They've
Sure.
had those courses, and the outcomes are all the same. And if there's a certificate, it just makes sense. But it's even, we see it for somebody who's been an accountant for 10 years, but they never had any
Yeah.
coursework, right? But
Yeah.
they already do Peachtree. They already know those things. Why would you make them start in accounting one, right?
Right. Yeah.
It just
It's cool.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. So some of the big things that we'll parse this into two areas, because obviously you do a lot of work internally with partners in Tri-C's, you know, world. And then you also obviously work with a lot of partner schools. So we'll start with the partner schools piece of this. Is there some things that you would recommend that people that do this work keep in mind? I know that like for you guys, you obviously you have this team together. It's part of Tri-C culture to also think of the student that is starting at Tri-C and transferring out to complete that bachelor's degree. You guys do workforce development and stuff too, but like we'll focus on the transfer for this transfer podcast, right? So are there some tips and tricks? Is there like some obviously like be respectful of the other, like obviously there's probably little things that we can all assume, but you've been doing this work for so long. What are kind of some of those that you can offer to the membership?
Well, it can be a little tricky. When you're working with individual schools, like I had kind of mentioned earlier, you have the people that are at the level that have to do this work, but there may not be the people that are implementing the work. So my biggest thing that I always talk about if I'm talking with a VP or a provost, I'm always hoping that maybe we can do a bigger meeting and include the people that are actually working with the students if it feels like they are not as receptive, because the legal agreement's a legal agreement. You can switch things here or there. It needs to go through the legal departments to make sure it works out legally. But sometimes if you're the person that's actually working with the students and you're not sure what's in there, so I try to make sure that if, and I just want to make sure that I'm being respectful of the other institution, but I know that it needs to be broader. You need to have everybody at all levels aware of what's going on.
Sure.
You need to make sure you're working with faculty and deans. So when they're talking with students that are coming in, they understand the students that are coming in. Hopefully they're saying, oh, we know that the Tri-C students are prepared to take this next level course because they've taken this and done well. So the first thing is make sure that it's a bigger team that's working on it, because it's only going to help be successful in the long run. The agreement takes a lot of time because, like I said, legal's involved and a lot of people that are really busy, and sometimes people don't work with them. We're lucky in the state of Ohio that with the OGTPs and so in the big initiative statewide, that even though if you're a private school, you have to kind of pay attention, right?
Yeah.
So my thing is trying to get a bigger, a bigger group of people to support this from each of the campuses, so there's a better opportunity for success for students. I always sometimes have to remind some of the partner schools that there are students. When I say our students, I don't mean Tri-C students. I mean there are students as in both of our institution students. So we're not asking things for our students. We're asking you to help your students that are coming to you. So that's why when we talk about scholarships, they're like, well, we don't, it's like, but they're going to be your students. Would you offer them? So try to work with them to understand that, once again, they're not Tri-C students, they're going to be your students. So,
Great.
and the other thing we try to work on is that in between, once they're getting ready to leave, that they're already meeting with that four-year school the students feeling comfortable with the four-year school. They know how their courses are going to transfer as best as possible, and that there's an orientation. So many people think, oh, we have freshman orientation they come to. I'm always an advocate for saying you perhaps need, if that's what you feel you're going to do, you need to have the half a day where you pull the transfer students out at least to prepare things, because once again, they are different than freshmen in most cases. It depends. If you look at CCP student who took one course after they graduated from high school, they're transferred. Then at some institutions they aren't, but they're really not. They're more of a freshman coming in. They may have the coursework, so they might need to do freshman stuff. But if I have a 35-year-old mother of two, she probably needs a little bit different information other than what it's like to eat there and live on campus. So,
Right. Yeah.
So there's some trying to get a bigger group of cheerleaders together. Understand that there are students, which meaning both institutions, that we want them to have the option to go. And then I always let the four-year school know you're not the only option for students.
Right.
And we're seeing some shift in where our students are going. They are able to look at bigger. Some of that's because of online programs, but some of it are not online programs. They see that there's other opportunities, see there's better options for them at another institution, and they're taking advantage of that. Yeah. So, I just want to make sure that the four-year schools understand that is that we need to work together for the betterment of both of our institutions, because we want to make sure our students are going where they want to go, where they are going to get the best opportunities, all the way around, in benefits.
Right. Good answer. Yeah. More stakeholders you can get involved, obviously, that care about this work, probably the more likely it is that the work gets done.
Yes. Exactly.
So let's flip it, because I'm sure you use different tactics internally, obviously with your, quote unquote colleagues, your coworkers at Tri-C. Faculty are probably a huge portion of this work at Tri-C for what you do. So what are some things that you keep in mind or how important are those relationships internally when you're doing your work?
They're extremely important. And what I do, and you kind and Becky will do the same thing, Becky Dennon, when she's working with them, is that we want to make sure they're involved, that they understand that these are things. We want to make sure we give them options. Hey, we already have these agreements with these schools in your area. Are there any other you would like to reach out to? Do you hear your students are interested? So we want to make sure it's kind of a two-way street where we're just not saying, here's another school, please look this over, or we want to make sure they might not have. And we've had some apartments go, oh, we can make suggestions. So you want to make sure you're working with those. And our counterpart chairs are usually pretty good. Sometimes it comes from a faculty member. Specifically, it doesn't matter. If there's an interest, it seems like a school, we want to make sure we're working with our transfer center folks to make sure that they are seeing some, promise in some of these different ones. Because we just don't want to have pathways for the sake of having pathways, because there's a lot of work involved. We review them every year, every pathway. We review every year. We have lots and lots, hundreds and hundreds of pathways to be reviewed. So, so you have to get them involved. And what we usually do is try to say, okay, if it's, because some of them are from applied degrees, which there isn't much you can do about that. But most schools still want to have either an AA or an AS, so an associate degree of arts or associate of science. So that way we have to pick and choose courses. We need to look at what the four-year school has in their first 2 years. And then we looked at what's in our 2 years, and we start that work. So we just don't give it to the faculty, because that's not their expertise, right? They don't need to be looking at all that. So we try to start out with, here's what they offer. Here's our program that we would recommend. And what do you think? So then they may have, well, we have an elective here. We think this course would work best, or we think it may not be a tag course, but it could be a course that we can have the partner school look at to see if they'll accept it. So we try to get a lot of that work done ahead of time.
Right.
So that really helps faculty, and most faculty appreciate it. And some faculty are like, yeah, this, I have no, do whatever you want to do. Yeah, you're right. So um, that working with them is key, because you don't want, once again, you want to make sure that is something they want, but we also have some schools that are asking us, is this an area that you would be willing? I mean, we want to get students to go where they want and have, pathways that they can look at, and maybe a school that they want that there is no pathway can be a little
Yeah.
different. That's where we're going to look at it. But working with the faculty, because once again, they're the ones that are teaching these courses.
Yeah.
They can say, then we have, did you think about going here? We have a pathway. And we're also with some of the programs, like we're taking the Ohio Guaranteed Transfer Pathways and making them an AA or an AS with a concentration in this area, for instance, biology.
Nice.
Students can then have it on their transcript that they have an AS with a concentration of biology. It meets the OGTP. The partner school can see that easily, so they can automatically just transfer that credit. So
Yeah.
we're working towards getting all the ours that are approved move towards that.
That's very nice. Just because I think coming from, and this is my 4-year perspective, right? Taking the student after, obviously I'm going to say 2 years, but we know that there's 1,000 caveats with me saying that.
Right.
Because some students don't, so the OGTPs kind of knock some of this out, because a student can be like, I'm interested in biology, I just don't know where yet, right? So like there's the built-in advantage of that. But there are also a lot of students that start at Tri-C, any other community college. Maybe they started years ago, they're finishing up now, where they might think, and this is probably happens in your work a lot, so I'll use business as an example. They do an applied business degree, right? And then they want to transfer, and they're saying, we're half done, right? Not all the time. But I will say, as the 4-year school, if you are able to build off of an applied degree, a lot of times, just from my experience, that's great for the student. For one, they might actually be, this sounds a little bad when I say it like that. I'll take a step back. When a student graduates with an AA, AS, it's telling us like, you've likely started on your major, you've taken all these gen ed courses, right? But when you go into an employer and they want a specific type of associate's degree as the bare minimum for a degree, sometimes the AA doesn't meet the same threshold as an AAB does in this case. So if you are the 4-year school, and I'm not saying to make a pathway that's 150 credits long, because I don't think that that necessarily helps anyone. Is it a few credit hours over 120, but you can build off of an AAB or an AAS or whatever? I think that a lot of us look to like what we do with like an RN to BSN program. We seem to have all figured it out for that program, in that we just take the degree in its entirety and a student can start working while they complete it with us. So if you are doing that work at the 4-year institution, just know that probably your recruiters and some of these students don't start having those conversations until they're closer to the end of their associate's degree. And at that point, the student's already taken a bunch of classes, and then we're doing just one-on-one unofficial evaluations or whatever. So I don't know if that helps you out at all, Becky, to put that out there, but that would be my advice if you're able to do that at the 4-year.
Right. And that's again where each transfer student is a little unique, because they don't always come to us when soon enough so we can help direct them.
Right.
They're not aware of resources soon enough. They know what they want to do, but they've not shared it really with enough people or looked into what they need to do. So some schools will work very easily with applied degrees. Some of them will not. But applied degree means you want to go get a job after you finish it. The AA and the S is basically you want to transfer, but we still have a number of students, like you said, in nursing, that their idea is that they do want to transfer. We figured that out. Unfortunately, not all those schools are helping figure that out. Some schools, yes. I'm not doing any official transfer pathway if it's 150 credit hours and the graduation is 120. Not happening. It's not. Right. We may have pathways on how you, like we have advising guides that we post, not open to the public, but for internal purposes. So a counselor could go look, or somebody could go look on if they want to go into pre-med and we know that they can do this, that really they should do this a little bit differently and take these additional courses for the school, and then they're on track pretty quickly if they're not already on track. But
Right.
so the applied degree can be a little tricky. We've had more schools that are saying we can do this, and maybe it's in an applied of technology type program so they can graduate earlier. But if my policy and Tri-C's policy is that if it's going to be a lot of hours, we are not going to post it as a transfer pathway. It needs to be pretty close to the
Yeah.
total
Yeah.
of what it is to graduate from the 4-year school. We know there's going to be a few extras here and there potentially, but when you get, 20 hours, 15, sometimes even over, I don't think that's a viable transfer pathway. We're going to help students and we're going to have the 4 years work with them as soon as possible. But sometimes, students are coming in, they've been to 4 other schools. We know this. We're the ones working with them. And then they still want to transfer on. So
Right. Yeah, and I know that about you. So I wasn't trying to say like Becky's out here posting 200 credit hour
oh,
pathways,
yeah, yeah.
that's not what I've ever thought about you. But just, I think that I don't know, there could be some specialized field where sometimes that kind of stuff happens with a pathway, and then we just, an advising guide, that's a great maybe middle ground if you're working with students, and just know that even if, I mean, maybe this is more of a Kent State perspective because I know kind of how we do it on the pathway side. It's not me, just to put that out there. We have someone. Um, Even if we start the conversation about a pathway, say with Tri-C, we go through the workings of like, let's see which courses line up well. Even if that pathway does land at 150 and we decide not to post it, those transfer equivalencies are likely in your school's database at that point. So if an advising guide, like Becky said, can kind of be something that's created, at the very least, whoever's helping students with their unofficial evaluations or such, that's more power in your back pocket as a practitioner in this case. So not to say that it's always just a bust when it's, I keep using the 150 total, but whatever it ends up being, just know that that work doesn't fall flat. It's still valuable work that your institution has then done, just as a little drop. But
Right, because I think we're evaluating like 26 of the pathways we have with Kent State right now to make sure,
Mhm.
because there's been a lot of changes in the state with math. So
Yep.
unfortunately, we have to go through and then decide what's going to be best for students in the math arena as
Yeah.
that goes forward. But I know I'm pretty sure it's under 30, but course, the pathways that we're looking at and
Yeah.
getting these updated and changed to meet the new requirements. So.
Yeah. Well, I have just a couple little things, I guess, since you and I are both, we could talk all day, I think. So let's, for the last kind of main question that I got for you, obviously you're juggling a lot of things. There's probably a bunch of duties as assigned that we haven't even really talked about at all. So how do you keep this all together? How do you keep yourself motivated? Are you a yogi? Do you just drink coffee all day? What's kind of your advice for people maybe with a full plate like yourself?
Well, quite honestly, it goes back to my team. To have a strong team around me is the most important thing possible.
Yeah.
Remember my dad telling me, and a lot of people know this, you want to hire people smarter than you, that, you want to have a good team. And I'm really blessed with an awesome team and working at an institution that has transfer in its mission.
Mhm.
So it is very much a part of the culture of the college. And when you have a strong team that works very well together, it just, we try to do things to keep frustration down. You go ahead and blurt it out, but then we got to move on, right? That's
Yeah.
sometimes with me, I will be like, annoyed for a minute, and then I don't have the time to be annoyed any more than that because it doesn't let me get my work done. You just need to be able to get your work done. Um and so sometimes there's a lot, and you got to figure out where to fit it all in. But time management, I mean, it goes back to, I remember with a freshman in college, and we had to do the calendars of put all your classes in it, but you have to say, here are standing meetings, here are this. I block out time sometimes to get things done because a meeting will pop up all of a sudden. So I'm glad we're kind of coming out of COVID more. That's the other thing I like so much about OTC, that it's actually in person. So many things have
Yeah.
moved to just, you're doing a WebEx or a Zoom or whatever, Teams. But, that it's coming out a little bit more, so you have more interaction. And when you can have that interaction, it's much quicker to get things done. If we have a flexible work schedule, so I make sure that we're all in at least one day together. If we have a lot of stuff going on, we're going to be in more than one day altogether. So it just, the work gets done a lot faster if we can do that.
Sure.
We make sure that we do planning retreats. I've been doing that, for years. It's very important to take some time to get together as a group, at least a couple days, maybe a couple times a year, so you can focus on the things that you need to do. Because not only is it just doing this work, once you do all this work, it has to go on the internet. You have to put it on our website. You have to update our internal web. You have to do new publications if a publication is something that's used. So it's just not doing the work. Once you do the work, you need to make sure people are aware of the work that you're doing. So just making the updates to the website and those kinds of things. Doing trainings. We do a lot of trainings for submitting, and working with faculty about making sure they're all aware and departments are aware of what they do. So you just need to make sure you have good time management and have a great team around you. I'm very, like I said, very fortunate with my reporting structure, my team, that it's easy to get the work done, right?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I know it sounds cliche, but I really love what I do. I really feel the work that we're doing is helping students. So
Yeah. Well, that's always the moralistic aspect, and the enthusiasm that comes with that is something that I think a lot of us in higher ed, just in general, experience. That's why we like to stick around and work with students and stuff. But transfer students need a different kind of advocate, and it's a headache sometimes, but it's definitely something that I think that we all feel is worthwhile. And I think that you're right on. Well, it's not like I stand anywhere to call you out on anything, but obviously I agree with a lot of the things that you say. Having great people around you, I'm glad that you guys have been able to kind of like, if you're 100% online, maybe you're lacking some of that, but obviously we all appreciate maybe flexibility. You and I are both working from home right now. Just, gives you some extra time with the dog or family, or your water heater today getting repaired. Sorry if you didn't want that out there.
oh, that's all right. Not a problem.
Yeah. But then also, yes, the good team. You've mentioned Becky Dinnan a couple of times. I have the funniest little story about the first time I met Becky. Was we were both in our former positions showing up to a Tri-C transfer fair at the Metro campus, and I didn't quite know where to go. It was my first grad fair at the grad fair transfer fair at the Metro campus. I cannot talk today. And Becky was like, I saw her in the parking lot. I saw the rolly bag. So she was like, I know where I'm going. Follow me. We ended up in some weird basement somewhere. There was not a single person around. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what is this? What has this person gotten me into, right? And then we bumped into an employee and they're like, why are you down here? And we're like, we swear we're here for a fair. And they're like, oh, come with us. She was off by like 2 buildings. It's still something that I poke fun of her, and she's probably going to be mad that I put it out there online, but very funny. I've always loved Becky, but it was a little funny of a beginning for us. But all right, anecdotes aside, is there anything else that you think I forgot that you would like to add for people to know?
Gosh, I don't think so. I mean, we know that we do this work for the love of the work. It's not necessarily for the pay, right? But higher education is something that I never thought I would be involved with. You don't really know it's a career. If someone would have told me I would have been doing this type of work, I probably think, yeah, that's not going to happen. But
Right.
I think you have to love the work to do it well. And I think most of the people and the colleagues from around the state that I work with, or even throughout the nation, love the work that they're doing and want to do better for students. And if you don't have that attitude, you probably shouldn't be doing this work.
Well spoken. Yes. All right. Well, we knew we were going to be a long episode, but we are going to wrap things up for everyone. So for everyone listening in, again, Becky is our award winner of the Jonathan Tafel Award this year. Please, if you obviously you've listened to the podcast, just know that she is also in the orbit, and when you see her out and about, feel free to say hi. I'm going to put you out there. Again, this is our 19th episode of PODTC. We're going to keep coming out every single month. We're going to keep up with that here in this new academic year. So be on the lookout for more episodes, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you.